had your hand up as well?
I work for Loblaw, which is a conglomerate in Canada.
Okay. And where are you based, in Toronto?
Toronto,
Yeah.
yeah.
Great. Hey.
Hey, how are you, Mike?
Good to see you.
Likewise. Good to see everybody, and thank you, Daniel, for organizing this.
Thank you, then.
I work at Brown Harris Stevens in New York. It's a fairly large company.
Yeah.
Real estate's been around since 1875.
Great.
Great company.
Now, my very last question, and I'll jump in. How many of you feel like you are really fluent in AI today? That you've invested time and that you are really comfortable making use of these tools to make you more productive? No hands. One hand. Okay. A couple hands. All right. And you've worked in the AI space, obviously, so you know, right?
Yeah.
All right. Because we're going to talk a lot about that. All right. So anyway, I have not taught on this campus since I think 2017. So I've been off doing other things now, right? So I'm an executive fellow at Harvard Business School. I'm teaching entrepreneurship courses there, very much like the courses I taught in this classroom. How many of you took my entrepreneurship elective? Handful of you. Very cool. Right? I'm spending a lot of time doing exec ed training on AI for a whole range of universities, from Carnegie Mellon to Cornell to Oxford to soon NYU, and I've done the same with Berkeley. So I've been spending a lot of time out of the country training executives. But what I want to talk to you about today, and I think this is relevant not just for those of you who are entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, but for all of you. And that's really what I want to convey today, right? So I'm going to just, for a moment, talk about some of the timeless mindsets and methodologies that we've always needed to be successful as founders, as entrepreneurs. That will never go away. I don't care what technology we wind up seeing in the world. But what I also want to make sure that we talk about are these really cutting-edge technologies that are profoundly changing everything about the world of business. And I mean everything, okay? So let's just go back to history, right? Let's just go back to the modern digital era. It took about 35 years from the time that the first mainframe computer was invented, and of course it was programmed in Fortran and COBOL or machine language, and it was programmed with cards. And it took about 35 years for this to go mainstream, right? When the Apple Lisa came out, it began to democratize access to the computer. Not a terribly long time historically, but in the digital age, that is insanely long. And then we think about the internet, right? From the time that TCP was first created until the time that the Netscape browser hit the world, which was really the beginning of our digital era, that took about 11 years. Okay? But now, it no longer takes an entire generation for technology to be adopted. It happens almost overnight. So what we see here is this AI has crossed the chasm in just 5 years. So the first papers were written in 2017. We saw ChatGPT, which was a meteor strike in November of 2022. Right? We've got hundreds of millions of daily users already. We've never seen anything like that before. And so let's talk about these very timeless methodologies just for a second, right? We've always had these 4 levers that we could play with, right? And as founders, our job was to figure out how to make all 4 of these optimal, whether it be the most important to begin with is product market fit, or the business model, how do you get that to fit? How do you get your product to fit the channels? This has been something that's been happening forever, okay? Nothing new here. And the immutable truth is, as entrepreneurs, we always had to emulate this guy, okay? A startup is an experiment looking for a business model, period. And if you think that you can program that, you're wrong, okay? So the key here, of course, is there's really only 3 major milestones, although they are very hard to achieve. The first is, have you identified a real user with a real problem? Because if you haven't, there's no reason to waste your time, energy, and money on a startup. And the one thing that people miss is founder problem fit, right? If you're not a founder that is deeply concerned or connected to the problem, you should not in any way, shape, or form be a founder of that company, right? That is just not going to be something that's going to work out for you. Once you identify customer problem fit, the next is problem solution fit. And then finally, the holy grail, which very few startups get to, is product market fit, where there's now genuine demand for your product. You are solving an important problem that people need to see solved. But now gets to the exciting stuff, okay? Not that long ago, it would take about a 15-person team to be able to generate somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million in annual run rate revenue, okay? Seems very quaint today. And so there was a New York Times article about a year ago, AI is changing how Silicon Valley builds startups. But it's not just Silicon Valley. It's Boston, it's Tel Aviv, it's Bangalore, it's Shanghai, it's wherever they build startups. It's a turbocharger, okay? And so now, if you think about where we are, and this has only happened in the last year, everybody knows who Sam Altman is, of course. There's a betting pool with my friends on our WhatsApp group as to what year we will see a one-person billion-dollar company. That would have been inconceivable to even think, much less say out loud, 2-3 years ago, okay? Now, I don't know if anybody recognizes this young Israeli entrepreneur. His name is Mayor Shlomo. And Mayor started a vibe coding startup, and we'll talk a lot about vibe coding in a minute. He started a vibe coding startup, and by himself, created enough value that he was purchased for $80 million after 4 months, okay? This is the new reality. And so again, it's not just in startup land, right? This is something that can be done within the context of a large organization if it's led and managed correctly. So here's a really fascinating curve. Back in the day, if you think about some of these human-powered digital platforms from people like Airbnb, as an example, or LinkedIn, it would take you anywhere from 500 to 2,500 people to get to $100 million in ARR. But it would also take you many, many years, 10, 12, 15 years. Then we get into the world of product-led growth, and we know some names like Slack and Calendly, and you may some of the other names, right? And now we're talking about getting to 100 million ARR, which is a sign of real success, right? This is when you've done something meaningful as an entrepreneur. That would take between 100 and 500 people. But now we have shifted into something profoundly different. We're moving into a world where we're getting to 100 million ARR with increasingly fewer people. In some cases, 20 people, not 2,500 people, okay? And so we see these rocket ships, and I don't know how many of you are paying attention to this space, but let me just point out a couple of names. Anybody know Cursor? I'm sure that you do, Dan. Anybody else? Okay. Cursor is now the fastest growing startup in history. 4 MIT computer science undergrads started the company in 2022. They are doing $500 million a year. They're a couple of years old, $500 million. What's even more amazing is they're doubling their ARR every 2 months. By the time, so this was 2 months ago, they're now $1 billion a year. 2 months ago, they were $500 million a year, okay? Just think about that for a second. Lovable is a Swedish company, and they are also in the same general category, although they are much more focused on non-technology people, where Cursor is much more focused on those who have some level of computer science background. They're generating $100 million, and they're less than a year old. Okay? And so Cursor, one of the things that's amazing is they've got over 1 million daily active users. They never spent $1 on marketing. I can't even imagine teaching a course here, because I taught the marketing course here as well, that I would say, yeah, we're going to be able to get to 1 million users, but we don't have any marketing spend. You would have laughed me out of the classroom. Okay, now it's true. Okay, they have 60 employees doing $1 billion a year. 60. Okay, and they've raised about 1.1 billion. They're about to hit their valuation is almost $10 billion today. So let me ask you a question. If you look at what's really important now, the single biggest metric is the ARR per employee. So every Cursor is generating $5.5 million per employee. Lovable is 2.2. Does anybody want to guess, out of the major public US companies, what's the #1 public company in revenue per employee? Does anybody have any idea?
Google.
It's
OpenAI?
close. Google is #2.
OpenAI?
Apple?
No, I'm talking public now, not
Ah.
private. Yeah.
Apple.
Apple's #1. Take a guess at what its ARR per employee is. It's about $2.2 million. So Apple is half of Cursor, about the same. Someone said Google. Google is #2 at 1.1 million per employee, and Microsoft is #3 at 1. Okay. So you think about how these startups are generating insane amounts of revenue. So everything that we thought to be true, right? It used to be the CEO founder would pound their chest and say, I've got an empire working for me. I've got a team of 500 people. Used to be a cool thing to say at the country club. We don't say that at the country club now. We say, I have a tiny team and I'm generating hundreds of millions of ARR per person. That's the new metric that matters, okay? And so, we're going to talk for a moment, right? Building an AI-first startup is the only way to build a startup. Why? Because if you're building a startup that's not AI-first, good luck raising money. And if you can't raise money in this era, you cannot, it's very hard to bootstrap today. There's just way too much capital out there. So, I teach a bunch of courses on how to use AI in startups, and there's nothing that you can't do. But I wanted to share with you just one example before I get into the meat of the presentation. There's a company called Topline Pro. Topline Pro went out, and their initial value prop was they thought that plumbers were looking for more business, which I found kind of amazing, right? Has anybody ever been able to get a plumber to their house in less than 3 months? It takes an act of Congress, right? But they decided what they would do is they would be the marketing engine for this incredibly fragmented service industry of landscapers and roofers and people that put gutters on your home and people that pave your driveways, okay? This is an insanely fragmented market. Does anybody remember Constant Contact? Anybody remember those days from Constant Contact? They tried to do something similar 20 years ago, okay? And they were providing, very basic email marketing services to dry cleaners and pizzerias to improve their business. And what happened was that they had to buy ads on the radio, they did billboards, it was very, very mass marketing. What these guys are doing is they're using AI and they're using avatars, where the CEO is recording a stock video, but then by using AI, they're integrating this very company-specific content into this outbound email. So that when I get an email as a prospective customer, it's perfectly targeting me. The CEO founder is speaking to me. He's talking about my business, and all of this happens with literally a couple of clicks, okay? This company is exploding in growth, and I won't bother. So what we're now seeing is what we're calling the revenge of the MBAs. Now, why do I say that? For many, many years, I would be here or in other schools, Professor Mike, and the MBAs, I need a coder, I need a techie, I need a hacker. And it was always challenging to find a hacker. Well, here's the good news. You don't need one anymore. So in May, I led the first ever joint Harvard Business School, MIT Sloan hackathon. How many of you were in some of the hackathons that I ran here? Anybody participate in one of my hackathons? Okay, you did, right? So I've been doing I've done 200 of these, but it's the first time we actually got Harvard Business School and MIT to play nice together. And what we did is we had 300 Harvard MBA and Sloan MBA students register. We only had room for about 200. And we gave them vibe coding tools. Now, does anybody know what vibe coding is? All right, you're gonna figure it out real quick, okay? All right. So vibe coding tools democratize, they make us all citizen developers. We now can create applications, full stack applications, which we could never do because the programming language is English or Spanish or whatever, Hindi or whatever your natural language is, okay? So here we are at the Microsoft building, not all that far away at 1 Broadway, right? The Microsoft Research Center. And boy, the women showed up in force. Let me tell you, the women came in 1, 2, and 3. Okay? Now, what you may not know is the significant decline of women programmers. Okay? It used to be that we saw maybe 25 to 30% of computer science graduates were women. That's now fallen to about 10%. And so girls who code and a whole bunch of other organizations are trying to stem that. But what I loved about this is that the women came out in force. We taught them how to vibe code in the early part of this hackathon, and they were doing all kinds of what were called femtech related and caregiver related types of apps. So this once again makes this available to everybody, okay? And so we just literally wrapped up on Friday. We had an accelerator down at MIT's innovation headquarters, and a lot of the teams that did well in our hackathon built out their startups, again, vibe coding the whole time, okay? One of the most fun things I get to do every year is teach a group of 25 really intelligent students at Harvard Summer School, entrepreneurship course. In 4 weeks, we taught them how to code, and they all shipped product. They all shipped working product. All of them walked out of the classroom with many hundreds of users. Okay? That would have been inconceivable even 6 months ago. And one of them created this thing called the Glow Up Guide. I had no idea what the word glow up meant. Does anybody know what glow up is? Glow up is Gen Z's term for, making yourself look more presentable. Okay, I had no idea. But in a couple of days, they created a working website that just blew my mind. Okay, so this is the world that we are now living in. So vibe coding is the key thing I want you to walk away, not just knowing about, but committing yourselves to learn this. And it's something that, if I can take high school students and teach them in 6 hours, there's no reason any one of you cannot figure out how to do this, okay? This is taking the world by storm. This is the fastest growing category of software in history. And so there are, no exaggeration, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these applications. It's endless. And for most of you, you're gonna focus on sort of the left-hand side, right? Are there any hardcore coders in the room? So everything that you guys want to think about is, I don't have any coding skills. I can do some very basic design to code kinds of work. I don't have to know anything about software, or I'm going to do these zero code full stack app builders. And you've heard me talk about Lovable. And then Cursor, of course, is, Cursor's over here. It's a little bit more sophisticated. But what I would compel you to think about, if you are working in any role in any company today, we are all going to be expected to create applications that automate our own workflows. Okay, this is an expectation that all of us are going to have on our shoulders. So what we saw here, just think back what I said before, it took 35 years for Apple to democratize. It's taken less than 3 years for vibe coding to go from the initial invention to mainstream. This is unparalleled in terms of its rapidity. Okay? So, anybody from Brazil? So the largest edtech company in Brazil is called Q Concursos. A couple of employees vibe coded a new application, and in less than 48 hours, they were able to generate $3 million in incremental revenue. Okay? Not a product manager, not a software developer, a marketing person. Okay? Zillow has done the same thing, right? So it's not just happening in smaller companies. Zillow, we all know, is a big real estate website. They have their people in customer support, their people in marketing now coding workflow apps that they're releasing to hundreds of millions of users. So this is the future. In an accelerator in Kendall Square on the MIT campus, in one accelerator, they're generating 100 million lines of code every day. If you've ever been a coder or know what it takes to generate 100 million lines of code, what's basically what they're saying is this would be a $40 million a month level of output. And this is all being done by startups today. Okay? So startups used to be built with a hierarchy, maybe not as significant as the large corporates like Amazon, but this is how things were built. And this is what's happening today. A lot of these roles are going away. Okay? A lot of these positions are going away. These tiny teams are going to dominate now. And so what you're gonna see is even the CEO is gonna be expected to code. The new CEO founders, they're no longer just gonna be, barking out orders and pitching investors. They're gonna be expected to create deliverables through applications, just like everybody else. So what I want you to think about, because I want to be respectful of your time, I know Lingos is waiting your arrival, okay? I get that. But I want to now transition to big company, or where many of you might be. You've probably heard Jim Farley, the CEO of the Ford Motor Company, came out at the Aspen Institute not that long ago and said he expects about half of his employees, white-collar employees, will be gone. No one was willing to say that out loud from a mainstream Fortune 100 company. The CEO of Amazon, Andy Jassy, has made it very, very clear that we are going to be seeing a very different way of doing business at Amazon. Okay? But here's what's really amazing, right? The Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund has basically told all of its employees, you will either be using AI, or you will never be promoted again. Pretty straightforward message. Hard to, there's not a lot of daylight there. Pretty much get that message straight up, okay? So what we're gonna see in the corporate world, we're seeing it more and more, we're already seeing it in the entry-level world, is AI skills will be fundamental to your continued relevance. Right? I'm not here to scare you, but I'm here to let you know if this is not something that has crossed your radar screen yet, it's coming. And as I travel around the world, I'm seeing this with my own eyes, and it's not just in the US, it's in Saudi Arabia, it's in Kuwait, it's in Singapore, it's everywhere I travel. Okay? And a lot of countries are ahead of us right now. So does this surprise anybody? Does it scare anybody? Does it terrify anybody? Okay? So listen, we're all very lucky that we're not just graduating as fresh undergraduates now. The opportunities for new graduates is shrinking dramatically. People who study accounting, 44% reduction in entry-level jobs coming out of university with accounting degrees. Early analyst roles in investment banking and management consulting, people in PR agencies, ad agencies, they're going away. Tough statistic. In the past, Harvard and MIT's business schools, if you graduated, historically, you had a 95% likelihood that you had a job offer, or many when you graduated. This year, it was in the low 70s. Think about that, okay? So this is happening. And if you're not taking time to learn how to use these tools, you can hear about them, you can read about them, but you need to roll up your sleeves and play with them, okay? And so that's really the core message I want to leave you with. I've never seen, in my 30 years in Silicon Valley and in innovation, I've never seen anything like this. And I think that you're going to hear a lot of noise on the media that it's just a bubble and, it's crazy. Listen, there's always going to be haters. This is fundamental to work in the new world. So let me stop there, answer any questions I can, and recognize that we want to get you guys down to Lingos and sort of burn data, okay? Yeah, that was the slide I would have put up, okay? And by the way, you can vibe code, just so I can be clear. You can vibe code, you can, as a marketer, you can build the visualization capabilities, you can write basic code for data analysis. In finance, you can automate parts of your monthly close. Obviously, product, you can do all kinds of things to create MVPs in hours, not over many, many weeks. So we're all gonna benefit from this stuff, but we've got to dig in and learn. So what questions can I answer? Yeah, please.
So